Border security is part of what defines a sovereign nation, the ability to control who comes and goes and provide assurances that national security is indeed the preeminent function of the federal government.
South Carolina Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, who chairs the subcommittee on immigration of the full Judiciary Committee. As we continue now on America's Forum, the big news today, the president's proposed amnesty stopped in its tracks as last night a federal judge halted those executive actions offering protection and work permits for up to 5 million illegal aliens. But will the ruling stand? For more on this story, let's again ask our good friend Larry Elder, political analyst, talk show host extraordinaire at Newsmax LA. What do you think, Larry? What happens next?
Well, I hope it won't stand. Jonathan Turley is a left-wing, very popular lawyer from George Washington University, twice voted for Obama. He was hired, as you know, by John Boehner to file a lawsuit about all these executive orders. And he said this is a defining moment. If we don't do something, meaning if the Congress doesn't stand up, the separation of powers is over. And this president has walked all over the Constitution. And this is from Jonathan Turley, a left-wing guy who twice voted for Obama. So my hope is eventually it'll be overturned, but Obama will be long gone and the damage will be undone.
Well, and you look at this, were it any other president but Barack Obama, I would believe they would follow the judge's order. Look back to Little Rock in the late 50s. Whatever problems Ike had personally with desegregation of Little Rock Central High School, when the Fed said you can deputize the National Guard, Ike did that because the law ranked more than any personal perspective. But for this president, Larry, it seems to be always political, always seeking a political advantage.
And JD, what bothers me about this whole debate, the other day on my radio show, I played a clip from a guy named Eliseo Medina. He at the time was executive director of, I believe, AFL-CIO, gave a speech and he talked about the number of new citizens who would vote for, quote, progressive issues. And said if we have 12 million new citizens, 8 million of them voted for our cause, we're going to have a voting coalition for the long term. Which means that if these new citizens were not likely to vote Democrat, I doubt that the left would be pushing for porous borders. I doubt that they'd be pushing to have D.C. become a state. I doubt that they'd be pushing to have ex-cons become voters because they're likely to vote Democrat. So as far as I'm concerned, this is not about immigration. It's about the Democrats trying to increase their legislative power.
And when you take a look at this and really what would happen, and it's amazing to see it when you pull the curtain back, Larry. You've got forces within the establishment. I won't really even call them conservatives, but people who want cheap labor on one hand, welcoming in illegals like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You've got the Democrat Party and others on the left welcoming in illegals. The chamber, the establishment guys want cheap labor. The left wants cheap votes. And the only thing being cheapened and threatened is our national security and some effort to regain fiscal sanity in this country. It is a ticket punched for disaster. I can't understand why people aren't awakening. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, part of the reason I think, JD, that people aren't awakening is because of the way the issue has been framed. The Attorney General gave a speech a few months ago and talked about pernicious racism in America. And one of the 3 examples he gave for pernicious racism was voter ID, for crying out loud. A majority of blacks support voter ID, but if you're going to argue that anybody that wants voter integrity is a bigot, you shut down debate. That's what's happening in our country.
And of course, the curious thing about that assertion is the fact that the Attorney General of the United States and the federal court systems and federal buildings require what to get into the buildings? Photo IDs. So you put the lie to that instantly, and yet it is always framed as voter suppression. You get the last word with 20 seconds remaining.
And Jay, do you remember when James O'Keefe of Acorn fame walked into the voting booth precinct for Eric Holder, asked for Eric Holder's ballot, and it was handed to him? James O'Keefe is a white guy, looks nothing like Eric Holder. If that doesn't prove the need for voter integrity, I don't know what does.
Yeah, you know, it's a bipartisan thing. Jimmy Carter said it for Democrats and James Baker for Republicans. Nothing wrong with people proving they are who they claim to be when they go to vote. Larry Elder, you live up to the claims. Political analyst extraordinaire, we thank you for your time this hour. And hour 2 of America's Forum is coming right up.
There's a piece by Michelle Malkin written several years ago. We put it up on Facebook and on Twitter called How Mexico Treats Its Illegal Aliens. Here are just some highlights. The Mexican government will bar foreigners if they upset, and this is their words, the equilibrium of national demographics, close quote. What the hell does that mean if that's not racial and ethnic profiling? They will not let anybody in if the outsiders do not enhance the country's, quote, economic or national interests. They're not going to be admitted if they're found not to be physically or mentally healthy. They won't allow anybody in who shows, quote, contempt against national sovereignty or security. And they must obtain Mexican citizenship. Those seeking to obtain Mexican citizenship must show a valid birth certificate, provide a bank statement showing economic independence, pass an exam, prove that they can provide their own health care. And illegal entry into the country is equivalent to a felony punishable by 2 years. Document fraud is subject to a fine and imprisonment. So is alien marriage fraud. Evading deportation is a serious crime. Illegal reentry after deportation is punishable by 10 years. Foreigners may be kicked out of the country without due process of law. Law enforcement officials at all levels by national mandate must cooperate to enforce immigration laws, including illegal alien arrests and deportations. The Mexican military is required to assist in immigration enforcement operations. Native-born Mexicans are empowered to make citizens' arrest of illegal aliens and turn them into authorities. The Mexico's National Catalog of Foreigners tracks all outside tourists and foreign nationals. A national population registry tracks and verifies the identity of every member of the population, who must carry, by the way, a citizen's identity card. Visitors who do not possess proper documentation and ID are subject to arrest as illegal aliens. By the way, under the Mexico Constitution, political speech by foreigners is banned. Non-citizens cannot, quote, in any way participate in the political affairs of the country, close quote. And don't get me started on how they treat illegal aliens coming in from Central America. The Red Cross has protested rampant police corruption, intimidation, bribery, targeting illegal aliens there for years. And in 2008, the Mexican government launched a deportation plan to curtail illegal Cuban immigration and human trafficking coming up through Cancun. So that's what they're doing on our southern border to their illegal aliens, and all we're trying to do is have a temporary ban on people coming in from certain countries because of the greater possibility that people coming in may come here with bad intentions. And for all those reasons, people have gone absolutely insane. But why the 7 countries, you ask? Well, under President Obama, the Department of Homeland Security had already targeted 7 listed countries for the past several years as nations of concern. February 2016, the Department of Homeland Security announced that it was continuing its implementation of what's called the Visa Waiver Program Improvement and Terrorist Travel Protection Prevention Act of 2015 by adding to the list that already included Iran, Iraq, Sudan, and Syria by adding Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. So you add up those countries, those are the 7 ones that Donald Trump has mentioned in his executive order. That's where those numbers came from. There have been at least 3 non-deadly attacks in which people came from either Iran or Somalia, according to a political scientist at Ohio State University named John Mueller. One example includes the 2016 terror attack at Ohio State University. Recall that one? By the Somali refugee who lived in Pakistan before coming here. He was shot to death by the police after he slammed his car into pedestrians and injured others with a butcher knife. September 2016. Here, Adan was shot dead after stabbing 9 people in a Minnesota shopping mall. He was identified by his father as Somali, but born in Kenya, moving to the United States when he was a child. 2006. Mohammed Reza Tahari Azir ran a Jeep Cherokee into crowds of people at University of North Carolina. He thought he would be killed during the attack. He left a letter saying he wanted revenge for the deaths of Muslims across the world, and he was from Iran. He pled guilty to 9 counts of attempted first-degree murder and was sentenced for up to 33 years in prison. So, no, there hasn't been anybody who's killed anybody, but there have been attempts at killing people from at least some of these 7 countries. And again, the 7 countries were countries of concern. According to the Obama administration, Donald Trump is simply following its lead, and as a result, of course,